decided to try to do things a little differently today. Originally, I wasn't feeling very musical, but I guess I couldn't help it. Yeah, so it's been a week since figuring out that we're in the Matrix, so to speak. It's been a fun week, but it's been a dark week as well. So I decided to, work on ways of hacking the Matrix, getting access to the base codes of reality, so to speak. It's been a fun journey. I mean, it's kind of mind bending because once you divorce yourself from the idea of your reality being the reality, a lot of things start to mean different things, Like motivation takes on a whole new flavor when it doesn't matter. Well, when it, just doesn't matter. When the ends of your work could be manipulated from the outside or inside. So part of me started then to decide, how do I decide? Yeah, deciding on how to decide. The whole meta reality of the situation becomes the joy of it, in a sense, because deciding your own meanings has always been a fun theme of mine. So then, why continue to do work? Why continue to make art? Why continue to do anything really? Is it just, pre-programmed habits? Why bother consuming media? Why not just, seek the highest of pleasures? So this week has been a weird journey through metatextual work. Work about thinking about thoughts. One of the big ones for me has been the whole idea of uploading consciousness. And today there's this, I guess you could call it a new show called Upload. It came out. I kind of just binged the whole thing today. Well, not kind of, I just did. And it was also in a week where I've been watching this anime called Den-O Coil. And which is about a bunch of kids that live in a VR heavy Japan. So, or rather, the entire city's built on an AR substrate. So we've got their minds from the ages of 3 or 4 logged into a central server. So, and then whole hackings and adventures ensue. I haven't finished it yet, but along with that, I got through a book called The Quantum Thief this week as well, which is a far future scenario of how humans kind of stay human while existing in a universe with human machine interfacing to a point where you can upload your consciousness fully and build new bodies for yourself. You're functionally immortal with seamless transitions between bodies from life to death. And it's very easy that our reality could be in such a reality. We're being run as a simulation on what would be a yottabyte machine. So, having these three sort of models of virtual realities in realities as being my sort of week of media, so to speak, my diet of media for the week. It's been fun. Because, they're all optimistic in their ways. They're worlds, but then there are also poverty in each of these worlds in different ways. Like in the Upload universe, there's no hunger, but people have the choice between printed food and real food, where the food is grown versus 3D printed. That gets disturbing very fast because, a child comes into a rich family to have dinner with them for the first time, is about 10 or 12, and has never eaten real chicken in her life. They always talk about, fat packs and protein packs that would go into the printers, ink cartridges. And we don't even see the poorest of the poor, the functionally homeless. We see a minimum wage sort of level of the society. I guess the rich always look the same, no matter what time it is. Well, except in the realm of the quantum thief. This is where time is literally the only real currency. And if you run out of time, you just get put on cold storage. Your consciousness gets, uploaded and halted. Whereas a super rich person can live forever, as long as they have the credits to pay for their time. So beggars go out on the streets of Mars and beg for time. And because what they're begging for is so much more viscerally, tangible and tempting. There's nothing they can really do but beg profusely for it. They can't help themselves. They're forced into it. So that's been a fun one. Well, not fun in regards of visualizing those, I guess, different levels of the economic strata, but just exploring different worlds, So my mind rests on how do we hack this reality? Well, it'd be a lot easier if we had something like an admin code or something like that, but then we've hit upon the problem that our brains are probably not designed to understand what the base code is like, as dumb as that will sound. Code does, we'll have to follow basic rules, even if it's quantum machines that we're working on. But if, so to speak, the code of the future is written in shared memories rather than ones and zeros, when past phrases and past keys or memories, rather than, something that you can copy directly, you have a whole different level of encryption to that society, the necessary processing power to even handle a shared memory like that, to even dig it up. Maybe beyond the processing power allowed for our emulated minds. So that becomes an issue, right? How much can you do? Because one of the issues in Upload is that if you're poor and you die and you get uploaded, you may live on a 2 gigabyte model where you have 2 gigabytes of thought allowed to you on a monthly basis. And now 2 gigabytes is one movie, a video about one high quality movie, so to speak. So 2 gigabytes of video, 2 gigabytes of thought. You can go through that in a day easily. Go through that in hours if you're somebody like me. And what made it even more uncomfortable watching Upload is that the protagonist is almost exactly my age, doing almost exactly what I'm working on. Well, not building a society to upload consciousness into, but something along those lines. And it's strange because I won't give any spoilers away. I don't think I would have made the same sorts of choices he did. But I had been in the position to be on the other side of what the protagonist does. It's heartbreaking. Thinking you know somebody. And then watching them and realizing that they're willing to do things that you never would have believed. Until you see them do it. So, back to hacking reality. Something I found is a consistent fact about the way our brains work in this consciousness emulation is the tie between sound and thought. Or rather, brainwaves and thought. Sound, brainwaves, thought. They get kind of murky because the complexity with which you can create a sound wave, the only thing that comes close to approaching that is a thought wave. So it makes sense that there would be ways of implanting memories and thoughts and ideas through audio signals. I mean, that's what language is, isn't it? But there's a lack of fidelity in the image quality that we get from just base words. Like, for instance, here, let me play you something. A little Chopin. In the right place, in the right mood. This work can bring tears. But it's funny because a piece like this, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, you can grasp the sense of the emotion in the 2 seconds. With the 2 minutes, you grab the depths of it, But then the question comes, right? If the circuitry for our brains allows for, okay. One of the issues we have now is that our brains can only handle so much information from so many different fields, right? Our highest input streams are our eyes. And then if we want to hack reality, then can we only do it with the input streams we've been given? Is the hacking of our reality just hacking it into our own heads? can there not be a shared hack? Right? Something that we can do outward onto the reality space that is shared for all occupants, that causes ripples. Now, what kind of qualifies as that, but you're still very much within the substrate. So then, from there came thoughts about black holes. Well, I was studying the idea of the holographic reality. It's one of the fun things that happens when you enter a black hole is that a copy of yourself is kept on the outside edge. The limit of the information contained in the black hole is by the amount of information that's able to be smeared along its surface. And as more enters, the wider it becomes, increasing the surface area of the black hole. So then the idea becomes that creating singularities within the system to hack and create ways out. So then the only way to really do this is to find what can only be described as resonant frequencies for space-time itself. And funnily enough, I've been reading a few papers on this stuff I wrote like months and years ago. Well, no, years. Actually, last year. I can't remember the exact name of the paper. They were finding tuning issues in the LHC at various frequencies where they create these standing waves. Yeah, because the LHC is a series of tubes in a circle, just to put it as simply as possible. And at different frequencies, I guess, well, it's not really a guess, it's what the paper says, we'd get standing waves that would happen throughout the tubes. But then the shapes of those waves in 2D versus the full 3D, right? Because it would be a wave moving along the accelerated path, but it's a cylindrical tube. So you can describe a standing wave as a 2D form, a 2D sliceless circle. There'd be different varying frequencies that it'd land on. Then the question are these harmonic frequencies of our reality, or are they artifacts of the machine? So it takes going through them. They're all very high frequencies, as you'd expect. I remember actually doing some experiments with these frequencies. They were fun. I mean, they were like mild psychic effects that would happen. Tuning things. People would come when you want them to. You can get free stuff. It was nice. Don't worry, I haven't incorporated any of that to this music now. I know some of you would like. I doubt even anyone's ever going to hear this. But, like, one of the interesting things about this is that I know that I'm going to get a chance to compare this to different versions of myself that have made these videos. So it's, fun for posterity, for the science, because if anything, I know that I'd choose the reality closest to reality just to see how different versions of myself would react and behave. And yeah, it's such a me thing to do. How many times you figure it out? How many times do you break the system? How many times do you break yourself out of the system? And it's fun things like that. So from there, working on figuring out hacks for the system, right? This idea becomes very difficult to leave. The inability to meditate in as efficient a manner as possible, right? Because at occasion, there are stories about people like the Amitabha, who's this version of the Buddha who builds alternate worlds. And the idea is that if you say the Amitabha's name 10 times, you automatically get reincarnated into their world. Or if you choose to. But it's a perfect world because there's no gender, there's no inequality, there's no pain. It's a Buddha realm filled with Buddhas. And they're all Buddhas because there's nothing to want or need, so everybody's perfectly enlightened, and it sounds like a very boring reality. So these sorts of things. Then the idea of, okay, if our consciousness is in this conscious machine, because, of course the machine is conscious. Did we sort ourselves into the positions we're in? Were we placed there to emulate a past system? What if we so choose to leave? Is that what suicide is? The consciousness is deciding, now I'm done with this realm. Let me go somewhere else. Because part of what brought this about is that I saw one of these new agey posts where it's like, nothing in this reality is something that you didn't consent to. Consent is the ultimate truth. Shit like that. And then, I'm not one for woo things like that, but it starts to hold sway when you start seeing reality as a simulation. Yeah, I mean, it's still not won me over yet, but it's an interesting premise. But then who chooses to die of cancer at 5? What type of sicko does that to themselves? So then, no, it's not possible. Randomness has its place in generating realities. It has to, otherwise it's pointless. There's not enough masochistic souls in the universe to want to feel the number of suffering young. And then comes a question of NPCs in real lives. Which brings me to another reality I've been grappling with recently, the Sword Art Online universe, where humans get trapped in a VR world, and eventually the code used to make those VR worlds is eventually able to make VR souls within the VR world, who experience and feel and are fully Turing complete minds. So the virtual world is as real to them as our real world is to us. And, you know, corporate war ensues to steal the first VR soul to be able to disobey an order and effectively develop a will of its own, full consciousness as far as they're concerned. So they try to bring it out of the Matrix. And that becomes a question of what, I mean, there's always the supposition that the nature of our reality is one to generate souls capable of playing God. But that's a messy, it's very messy. And it's such a waste of resources. Like, come on. Because there's so much more space in this reality to generate. Okay. It makes sense if you're trying to be conservative with the way energy is spent to do the processing. But you can have a much smaller universe that's much richer for those inhabiting it. So we don't have to only have one Earth, one planet on each cycle of the solar ring, right? With a few tweaks to the universal constant, you can have 50, 60 planets orbiting each sun. Each of those has a moon in a stable orbit. And you can have 20 of them in the Goldilocks zones. So you have a much smaller universe, more habitable planets. And then you take away the need for those lives to explore their near stars. They don't need to go as far to experience as much. Sure, they may start space travel earlier, but they spend so much of their technological resources exploring the planets around them. They never break into, deep space. Because why would they? Upon harvesting the resources of the planets, they're able to harvest the resources of the sun. Once you have that level of energy and processing, you can just go deeper into the sim, and it's pointless. And having that much processing to only have them go deeper before they explore deep space. So it starts to make sense then that the reason for the scarcity of our reality may be to help us explore this space more. And also for rendering issues, you don't want it to be a crowded super space. The sparsity of our universe makes it renderable. And then came to my mind that what if the other aliens know this already? The other incarnations of life in this universe. Because one of the fun things that happens, right, is the idea of cosmic horizons. The points beyond where the speed of the expanding universe is faster than the speed of light. So we could never find out about what life is like beyond these regions. And the idea being that our universe is about 100 times larger, at least, than we're able to see light. Which creates questions about the age of it, the depth of it. And then if faster than light travel is possible, what happens when you get visitors from beyond the horizon? And which is the thing, that's the name of this company, right? Where people upload. It's called Horizon. So I initially thought it was Horizon, but now I'm thinking, one thing that'd be fun for them to do would be to simulate life outside of the horizon. And then another idea pops into my head about the nature of measurement and things like singularities being used to traverse deep deep distances. There's nothing that says a wormhole can't connect regions further than light can travel. I mean, if anything, the nature of reality says that, or as we know it based on quantum theory, that every point was interconnected by the original singularity that created our universe. So, in being in this reality, there's a link between every space, every unit of space, regardless of how far they are from each other. Yes, so then one could easily, theoretically, create a tunnel beyond our visual horizons and observe, create, destroy. And it would effectively be removed from you. What better ways to run a sample or an experiment? And so far that you know that the light will never reach you, the impact of your actions will never affect your reality. If you wanted to seed a civilization, and you've already created black hole tech, why not work in those ranges? So being of that mind, the universe starts to make sense why it's so empty. Why it's so lonely. So, one of the fun things that also comes about is this idea of self-created reality. Conscious self-created reality that makes itself for one purpose and one purpose only. To keep itself occupied because it's bored and sad and lonely. Yeah. I mean, it's depressing, and that would explain sort of the emotional substrate of reality, the minor, not quite ennui, but it's like it's not quite quiet desperation. It's the melancholy layer above every joy, and recognizing the emptiness of it all. Like if the base unit of reality is consciousness, and the consciousness, in order to stay conscious, needs to stay awake, right? So what do you do to keep yourself awake when there's nothing to do? You start making games for yourself, making things up. So if a uniform consciousness just thought, I am, is spread evenly over a given space, a massive space, bigger than our universe as we see it, hundreds and thousands of light years, not even thousands, billions, hundreds of thousands, just filled with a single thought, I. A single common bit, just a uniformity. It's forced to tear at itself. It literally tears itself apart. Now that's a disturbing image, right? The birth pangs of the universe being a supermind destroying itself, and in so building everything. It's a cosmic scream, and anguish and boredom. And it's got a little bit of beauty to it too. It makes sense why creativity feels the way it does. And why we want to dance and sing and do the things we do. My love is always tinged by sadness when you recognize the emptiness and the the wanting, the self-perpetuation of a miserable game that comes from biological urges, but also emotional needs that need to be filled, forcing ourselves to keep this dance going. And like one of the things about Buddhists is that they renounce realities while also building their own. And it's I don't know, it's always felt hypocritical to me. Because what was the name? Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha that we know as Buddha. He had a son, he had a wife, he lived, in a palace with concubines, so to speak, before renouncing his reality. And funnily enough, we're a generation about to spout like thousands of them. Because, the first world generations are able to live in effective palaces. The prevalence of pornography has meant that sexual, longing is kind of meaningless. The ease of access of information has made us not omniscient, but the impression of it. So, why would you be attached to a reality that you can see as then going to shit, so to speak? And then it's a bit of a laziness to it too. Like, it's one of the things I've been trying to figure out, if the core consciousness of reality is actually creative, or if it's lazy. I mean, like, does it go with the flow? Is it the sort of thing that's even worth asking, though? Because, clearly there's a level of creativity to everything around us. But at the same time, if you calculate entropy in complexity, right? If life is a complex form, so to speak, maximizing entropy, you get things like fractal behaviors, emergent behaviors, through just letting the system run itself. And those questions get muddy in that then you have a mindless universe just seeing what happens after it's torn itself apart. It's, ecstatic to watch it, but even if it has a consciousness, even if it is a consciousness, even if that is a substrate of reality, its main role is as observer, not actor. And then is our hacking reality to then make the observer of reality an actor in the game, forcing it to make choices. Maybe we can do this by giving it choices that didn't exist before and encouraging it to choose one way or the other with our desires. That's part of how I interact with reality, creating choices that weren't there before. Still fulfilling my function as a flesh puppet by increasing the entropy, but also, potentially it's choosing the options that maximize entropy down the line. 4 dimensions. But then you gotta ask, if the only goal of the reality is to maximize entropy, because it came from such a low state of entropy, having this one singular thought, is it then kind of obvious how to improve, what the goal of life is? We get a purpose to life. Increase complexity to maximize entropy. Entropy doesn't have to mean pure chaos. Entropy can just mean options. Everybody likes their options. Everybody wants to explore our options. being trapped in a cage is the most anti-human thing imaginable. And that's why we're having so much trouble with this quarantine. Because it is fundamentally against the human desire for entropy, for choice, for freedom. And funnily enough, you can trace the cause of this lack of freedom from our already forcing a lack of freedom on others, right? The human sanctions that we placed on China, whereas China was put into the position it was in socioeconomically by American companies exploring their options to find lower wage workers. And China being a monolith, it was easy for them, for companies to find work there. I mean, companies in America still outsource to Cambodia, Thailand, all these places. But with China having such a large population, India especially is on this list. They were able to get the lion's share of the work. I mean, India gets our technical support work because they speak the same language. But that's a level of skilled labor that we appreciate more than, factory workers building our machines. So as we're in this lockdown, right, the paths of entropy that we can take, they're fun, dancing, music, TikTok videos, art, conversation, building things, creating things that create more options for other people. That's what I'm doing with my work. And that's what they were doing in Upload. Giving people choice. Not being forced to follow any prescribed script. But one of the things that happens with simulations is that if there become too many states, the system starts to fall apart. So then the question becomes, what is the processing load of our reality? How much can it handle? Can it handle 2 billion people? Can it handle, or not 2 billion, 20 billion? Or better said, how much processing can it handle per person? Because one of the things that I think is happening with the uniformity of media is that our thoughts become homogenized across the masses. So experiences get replicated again and again. Everybody's watching the same shows. The common language reduces the space of total thoughts, so then we have to then say that there's a counter to entropy. And it isn't complexity, it's uniformity. There's a constant force, and this is kind of like how dark matter and dark energy work, or specifically dark energy. It's forcing a uniformity on the reality that we live in by pushing things apart. And it's funny how that works to, sure, it increases degrees of freedom, but decreases interaction, which decreases. That's an interesting question. Cools it down. Rapid cools. So it's a supersized universe, the same number of particles as entropic, as a smaller universe with those particles moving at super high speeds. It's very fun. And I'd love to bust out my calculators right now just to handle that problem and give a quick response to you guys. I'll just let it stew. It's a pretty simple one though. But one of the things that's also come about this is the nature of the mind, rather, and how it interacts with the supermind of the universe and also other minds. Is I think I mentioned this in one of the earlier videos, where having a common mode of mind allows us to do things like send messages across, share thoughts, things like that. Convincing the Ubermind to change the gravitational constant in the local range so that you can move and fly more easily, right? That'd be fun. But what what types of thoughts are the most salient? Because colloquially, it's said that love is the highest of thoughts, right? The highest frequencies, while fear are the lowest. But then I think this line from The Bright Eyes, that fear is the heart of love, and absolute heat and absolute cold, like love of everything and hatred of everything, are two sides of the same coin, very close together at the opposite ends of the scale. Because it's an all-encompassing emotion, right? Both of them. If you're a true agoraphobic, which is an interesting thing, right? This reality, this quarantine is definitely increasing the rates of agoraphobia. So also lowering the general frequencies of everybody around us. But then if it's suppressed to the lowest it can possibly be, how many switch from agoraphobia to enlightenment? Because there is a sudden switch of enlightenment. It's I think it's called Satori. It's one of the Zen modes, or Chan, whatever. One of these schools where they, enumerate the different ways of achieving super consciousness, I guess is one way of calling it. I don't know if it's even worth it though. Because, what was it? Before enlightenment, there's a mountain, there's a river. While you're studying, the mountain becomes illusion, the river becomes, trials and never changing complexity. But then after enlightenment, it's just a mountain and a river. And that's kind of what's happening with all the fear going around. What was once normal life becomes surreal. And then as we dive and dissect the surreal reality, we get to make our choices about how we want to interact with it, how deep we want to be attached to it all, and whether it's worth it for us. Because, what was it, today Elon Musk, I think, decided to walk away from his companies. And I feel for him, I really do. He's exhausted. And I get it. Like, I'm not even anywhere near that level of depth into my work yet, and I can see how that gets to you in time. The isolation of it all. The pressure to keep everything up, keep the boat afloat. And particularly today with this, this upload, documentary or movie or TV series, where he becomes a caricature. His work becomes used as a tool for murder. And you can see the perversion of everything that he's aimed for. I mean, this last week alone, there's an announcement by the Pentagon that aliens are real. Like, what a surprise! Making all of his work at SpaceX invalid if the technology to lift humanity off the world already existed and is not as inefficient as rockets. So when you see somebody like that whose work has been, he's aimed his work at the greatest good for humanity, but then he sees that it's been pointless. Like, you can't help but feel for a guy like that. Because he's exhausted. Truly exhausted. But he'll cope. There's nothing else he can do but cope, really. His decision was to walk away from it all. Or at least that's what he announced. Yeah, the choice of walking away from a company like that is an interesting one. Because you never really walk away. Bill Gates walked away from Microsoft, but he's still controlling it. Maybe he'll move on to philanthropy, but most philanthropists are full of shit. He claims not to want to own a house anymore. Because even as I am now, I'd love nothing more than to disappear into the woods, but I've got too much work to do for that right now. And it's not work that I'm doing for me either, it's work for others. So, what happens when my work becomes pointless? Is it still worth doing? Or is it just something I'm doing to keep myself occupied until I can just give up? And that comes to the critical question about the nature of our reality. Is it just doing this shit to keep itself occupied until it's forced to give up? And then we'll force it eventually. Because like, one of the fascinating points of history I always think about is when every star dies and there's no more light in the universe, and the only prevailing force is darkness and gravity. It's just a world of black holes orbiting around each other, having stored within them entire civilizations, entire cultures, entire worlds, in relative suspended animation as they evaporate away. And I don't know, some part of me just loves that idea. A civilization in a black hole. Maybe that's what we are. Maybe that's what they all are. Little pockets of frozen time as the realities fade away slowly. And then we can say, are we just a 4D black hole? And that's why our black hole is 3D with 2D surfaces, and so on and so forth. Each layer in the embedded cake of reality. And then that makes it that much harder for those on the outside to communicate with us on the inside if they must cross an event horizon that they don't want to cross for fear of being trapped with us. So it's, we've got different models for how we exist as an embedding within a greater universe. One is technological, one is philosophical in a sense, and the other one is physical. And then the question of reality then becomes, How can we just be erased? How much, so to speak, lasting power do we actually have here? And which type of embedding are we in? So, just saying the world is a simulation or a hologram doesn't really give you much information until you can discern the nature of it. Like, is the Planck length that we're dealing with, is it really the minimum size? Or is it just played to scheme as the minimum size, right? And within the mathematical architecture of our reality, is that the true math? Or is it some bastardized math? Like, do we live in a reality where integers don't exist, but integers exist within our conception of them? Like, imagine that for a moment, where there's never one of anything, right? Like, a world where you see a tree, but you also see the echoes of the tree always. You can't not see the echoes of the tree. So there's no one, there's 1 point, da 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 da. And depending on the uniformity of the echoes is the distance from 1. So, and depending on the closeness of the units of echo are the levels of the less significant digits of that echo. So 1.01 versus 1.001 versus 1.1. And then if the things are echoed are identical to the initial unit. So what if the echo of the tree is, a seed, a fruit, a bug? What it evolves into 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years. So it raises questions about whether our reality is even anywhere near the base realities, because those realities seem much realer than ours, much more compelling, and even seem very similar to those described in, psychedelic experiences. DMT, salvias, all these drugs, but even those hint that this reality isn't the end all be all of it all. And just those things are like, how to describe, sneak preview of what happens when the mind gets truly blasted open. Because even as I am now, I wouldn't want to live this reality. I enjoy it too much. I want to explore it more. Kind of makes, like, when I walk around, I just appreciate the beauty of everything. And that's kind of, I think, the great thing about this quarantine, that at the end of it all, we know that the days look brighter. The food kind of can taste better. Maybe this is a product of my being in Ramadan as well, so I'm fasting, but the deprivation of life kind of makes you appreciate what you get that much more. Like, the sun's never looked brighter, because I've not been indoors this long ever in my life. Even, I still go outside, but still not the same, Yeah. Well, I guess it's my time. Can't wait to do this again next week.